Chapter 3, Lesson 6, Write Linear Equations, Day 2. This is a continuation of the previous lesson, Day 1. So now we're going to write equations in standard form. And right here is an example of standard form. The coefficient of x, or the number before x, just the number part, must be greater than or equal to 0. In other words, it must be positive. And also, there cannot be any fractions in standard form. So our x and our y terms have to be together. Our number by itself. X has to be positive, the number before it. And there can't be any fractions. So let's take a look at some examples here. Complete the following problems by writing them in standard form. So what we're going to do is we're going to distribute this 4 to get rid of those parentheses. So I have negative 4x minus 28. And over here I'm just going to bring back y minus 10. Now, one of the main things I like to start with, one of the main rules, is that x has to be positive. But here, it's not positive. So what I'm going to do, because it's not positive, I'm going to move this x term over first. Bring it over to that y. And I'm going to do that by adding 4x to both sides. Now, if you look over here on the left, 4x is not a like term with y, and it's not a like term with negative 10. So because of that, there's really nothing I can actually add or subtract together. So let's actually move this over for more room. There we go. So just write it out. Y minus 10 plus 4x equals. What's left on this side is negative 28. Well, I like my x and y terms together. I need to get the numbers all over to one side. So to get rid of this number, I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Those cancel out. I'm left with y plus 4x equals. Now these two numbers are like terms, and they are different signs, so I really subtract them and keep the sign of a larger absolute value. Therefore, I get negative 18. So the x is positive, because it's positive 4. The number is by itself on the other side of the equation, and there are no fractions. This is your standard form. Now, really, your x term should go first, so I'm just going to rearrange those two. So really, this one right here is your standard form. Letter B, let's try it again. Distribute that 1. I get 1x minus 3. Bring down y minus 4. Now this time, the x is positive, so I'm going to move everything else. The x really determines what I'm going to do. You can move the x, but you're just going to wind up moving it back later. So I like to save myself some extra steps. So I'm going to leave the x alone, and this time I'm going to add 3 to both sides. These cancel out. And now negative 4 and positive 3 are like terms, so combine them. You get y minus 1 equals 1x. Oops, that should be an x. But I need the number by itself, so I'm going to subtract y from this side to move it, and subtract y from that side. I'm left with negative 1 equals 1x minus y. I can't actually subtract x and y because they are not like terms. I have my x and y term together. X is positive. My number is by itself. And there are no fractions. Therefore, this is in standard form. Letter C. The first step is to distribute that 1/2. So I have 1/2 x minus 2. And bring down the y plus 1 equals. Now here again, the x term is positive, so I'm not going to move it. Instead, I'll get rid of the plus 2. Get rid of the minus 2 by adding 2. Those cancel out. I get y plus 3 equals 1/2 x. I need to get the number by itself, so I'm going to subtract y from both sides. And I get 3 equals 1/2 x minus y. I have my x and y term by itself. My x is positive. My number's by itself. However, this time I have a fraction in the way, and I need to get rid of it. This is how you get rid of it. It's quite simple. You're going to multiply everything by the denominator. So I'm going to put parentheses and multiply by 2. And distribute that 2 to every single term. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1/2 is 1. And 2 times, well, there's nothing really here except for an invisible -1. So 2 times -1y is -2y. Now it is in standard form. Let's try another one with fractions here. Distribute that 2/3. We get 2/3 x minus 4. Bring down the y minus 2. X is positive, so I'm going to get rid of the plus 4. And I get y plus 2 equals 2/3 x. I need to bring the y over and to get my number alone, so I will subtract it from both sides. And I get 2 equals 2/3 x minus y. Here again I have a fraction, so I need to get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by 3. Distribute that 3 throughout the entire equation. 3 times 2 is 6 equals 3 times 2/3 x is 2x minus 3 times y is 3y. And this is your standard form. Letter E. Distribute the -1/2. We get -1/2 x minus 2 equals, bring down the y minus 8. This time x is a negative, so I'm going to get rid of that by adding 1/2 x to both sides. Again, remember, 1/2 x is not a like term with y or -8, so I just rewrite it. Y minus 8 plus 1/2 x equals, bring down the -2. We need to bring the other number over to the right, so we're going to add 8 to both sides. On the right-hand side, we get positive 6. And I'm going to rearrange this here, 1/2 x plus y. The 1/2 is positive, so it stays positive, and the y is positive, so it's plus y. Again, because you want your x term before your y. Get rid of that fraction by multiplying everything by its denominator, which is 2, and distribute it throughout. So 2 times 1/2 x is 1x. Two times positive y is positive 2y, and 2 times 6 is 12. Letter F. Distribute the 4/5. We get 4/5 x minus, and this one would just be 12/5 equals y plus 1. X is positive, so instead I'm going to get rid of negative 12 fifths by adding it to both sides. Those cancel out. I get y plus 12 fifths plus 1. I'll show you over here. 12 fifths plus 1. Well, what I need to do, make it a fraction and then make it common denominators. So this would really be 12 fifths plus 5 fifths, which would be 17 fifths. So this is y plus 17 fifths equals 4 fifths x. Subtract y from both sides to get the number by itself. So I would have 17 fifths equals 4 fifths x minus y. Now here we have two fractions, but they are both 5. So that works out. I'm just going to multiply everything by 5. When you multiply by this denominator and it's the same as the number, it really just cancels out. So I'm left with 17 equals 4x minus, and then 5 times negative y is negative 5y. So 17 equals 4x minus 5y. Now writing an equation from a graph, and this should really say part 4. The first thing you're going to do is identify the slope, your rise over run. And then pick any point on the graph. Plug the values into the point-slope form and make it pretty. And then find the slope-intercept form. Remember, point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Letter A. So first thing we need to do is identify the slope. We'll pick any 2 points. Let's see. Got a point here, definitely. And it looks like a point here. So let's find the slope. The rise would be negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5 because we're going down. And then right 1, 2, so positive 2. Our rise over our run is negative 5 over 2. And leave it as a fraction. That is perfectly fine. And the point I'm going to choose, it really doesn't matter. I'll choose this one here. Is 0, negative 2. I like using 0 when I can. It's not necessary, but it makes makes the simplifying a little easier. So now we write our point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, your rise over run is your slope, therefore your m. And your point is your x1, y1. So now plug everything in you know. Y minus, our y1 is negative 2, equals our slope of negative 5 over 2 times the quantity x minus our x1 is 0. Okay. Make it pretty, and by make it pretty, I mean get rid of any double negatives you see. So we are left with y plus 2 equals negative 5 halves times the quantity x minus 0. That's our point slope form. And now we need to get y by itself, so we're going to use our slope-intercept form, or find our slope-intercept form. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute. Negative 5 halves x. Well, anything times 0 is 0. This is really plus 0, but because it's plus 0, we don't need to write it. So that just goes away. Equals, bring down your y plus 2. Now slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Y equals, therefore y must be by itself. So I will get rid of this 2. Y equals negative 5 halves x minus 2. Now in slope-intercept form, it doesn't matter if you have fractions or negatives or positives. It doesn't matter as long as your y is by itself. So that is the equation of this line. Let's do another one. First, we have to find our slope. To find our slope, we need 2 points. We've got a point here. And it looks like we have a point right here. Okay. Find our slope, which is rise over run. We are rising positive 2. And the run is right 3, therefore positive 3. So our slope, which is our m value, is 2/3. And the point I'm going to choose is this one here, which is 0, 3. That will be our x1, y1. Our point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Plug in everything you know. Y minus 3 equals 2/3 times x minus 0. We don't have to make it pretty, it already is. There are no double negatives, so that's our slope, or our point slope form. Now to make it slope-intercept form, we need to distribute and get y by itself. So we have 2/3 x, and 2/3 times 0 is just 0, so it cancels out. I don't need to write it. And we have y minus 3. I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Y equals, I can't add 2/3 x and 3 because they are not like terms. So 2/3 x plus 3. Letter C. Looks like I have a point here. And I definitely have a point here. Our rise over run is down 2, right 3, because we're going down to its negative. So it's negative 2, positive 3, and that's our m value. And our point, this time I'm not going to pick this point, just so you can see what happens if I don't pick that point. I'm going to pick this one instead. And this point, actually, I made a mistake in my slope, which won't affect our answer. I just noticed that these count by 2's. So this is really going down. Let me erase this. Although it's going 2 blocks, it's really going down 2, 4. So this is really minus 4. And this is going right 2, 4, 6. So positive 6. So this is really down 4, right 6, which in this case ends up reducing anyway to negative 2/3. So be careful of that. You don't want to make that same mistake I just did. Alright, so we're going to pick this point, which is negative 6, 10. This will be our x1, y1. Then we have our point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Y minus 10 equals, use the reduced version, negative 2/3 times x minus negative 6. Make it pretty. I have a double negative going on here. So y minus 10 equals negative 2/3 x, 2/3 times x plus 6. That's our point slope form. Now we want to get y by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute that, same as usual. Negative 2/3 x. Now this time it's not 0, so it doesn't cancel out. but that's okay. We can still make it work. We have negative 2/3 times positive 6, so I know it's going to be negative. Be negative 12 over 3, which reduces to negative 4. Bring down the y minus 10. We still need to get y by itself, so I will add 10 to both sides. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus, combine your like terms, negative 4 plus 10 is positive 6. So that is the equation of the line.